What was the crucifixion? What kind of criminals were crucified? And why did one thief on the cross defend Jesus? The goal of this podcast is to help people know Jesus through the Bible. Today we talk about the encounter Jesus has with two thieves in the book of Luke, chapter 23. Welcome to the Jesus Table podcast.
Welcome everyone to the Jesus Table podcast. My name is Elliot Reyna. I'm here with the one and only Dr. Nick
Come
on. This is episode 12. That's another good biblical number.
Yeah.
We've been touching on a lot of great stuff these last few weeks. I've really enjoyed every single conversation and podcast we've done.
Yep.
Going through Jesus' ministry and people were his ministry, different people that he interacted with, and it's been so refreshing and a blessing to me. And today, we are going to touch on a very important moment. Some would say, I think, the most important moment that we've come to the climax of Jesus' ministry, where it's been leading towards here in the crucifixion. So why don't we start with that, Dr. Nick? What was the crucifixion?
Whoa, we don't have enough time.
I know. I know. That
No,
could
we
be like a
can
whole series, but
exactly. No, it really could be. As a matter of fact, I've even thought of having a series on that, maybe in the future. But I think it's important for us to realize that there's a misconception, I would say a misconception, in many circles, even in churches sometimes, that the cross was an invention or was started by the Romans.
I
And
love that.
it really, yeah, no, it really, I mean, the Romans, of course, Jesus is the most famous crucified person in all of history. And of course, it was the Romans who did it. And so many people really say, oh no, that was a Roman thing. Well, it was a Roman thing in Jesus' day. But it really started centuries before. As far as history, more or less, it's believed that the Persians, who were the Iranians of today, right? The Persians were the first ones to really use crucifixion,
Wow.
And crucifixion is very different from what we sometimes think, or the pictures that we see, or the movies we see. Sometimes it was crucifixion was sort of, let's say, a slab of wood. Somebody would be put on a slab of wood and they would be tied to it. Other times, it would be the person would be nailed to it. Some executions just sort of used that as an example and didn't kill them. Others, of course, we know people died. So there's a whole variety. I mean,
Oh,
just
wow.
it goes for many centuries. We know, let's say, a great person that we know or we're familiar with is Alexander the Great, and he used it.
Wow.
When they rebelled against him. We know just of many situations. So I just wanted to clarify for people that they realize that it wasn't a Roman invention, the cross. So
Wow.
yeah,
How
it's
many years is before that? Alexander the Great, it says here,
well,
was
Alexander was
300.
about roughly 3 centuries before Christ, and the
Wow.
Persians of their time, roughly probably about 500 or 600 years before.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say roughly about that, approximately. Don't hold me to the year, but
No, you're right. I
approximately.
looked it up. That's
Oh, okay,
crazy.
good, good. But so we're talking at least 500, 600 years before Christ. But
Hmm.
it turns out, your question is, what does the cross mean? Or let's look at it from our perspective. When I say our perspective, I mean followers of Jesus. The cross is the place of death, but it's also the place of life. Let's put it like that.
Mm-hmm.
Cross in the sense of death because Jesus died on the cross, but he didn't remain on the cross. He didn't
Mm-hmm.
remain, and death did not conquer him. Rather, just the opposite. He conquered death. We know he rose according to Scripture and according to what we believe in the Bible. He rose on the third day. That God raised him from the dead. So, in that sense, the cross is a symbol of a total I guess, death, but at the same time, it's the place where God vindicated,
Mm-hmm.
as I said, we don't have enough time, but for example, we go back to Isaiah chapter 53, the servant song, and you look at it, and you say, wow, here you have something that talks about his death and how he was abused and all the other different things that happened to him. And that was written many centuries before. And even though there are some skeptics to say, well, that was maybe written about 2 centuries, it wasn't written originally about 6, 7, 8 centuries before Christ. That was written like 2 centuries before Christ. Even if it was that, as some skeptics say, you're still talking about 200 years before Jesus Christ was
Yeah.
actually crucified and all. So I mean, the cross is something that we need to really understand the purpose of all of that and who did it and why it was done. But again, it's what the Apostle Paul writes in the New Testament, which he quotes the Old. "O death, where is thy
Mm-hmm.
sting?" Like in other
Mm-hmm.
words, death you haven't overcome. There's somebody
Yeah.
who overcame you.
Where
And
is your
again, we
victory?
can go back to we can go back to Genesis 3 and all the other things with Adam and Eve and Satan and death entering. But again, the cross is very, very important as a matter of our faith. So I think with that, we can move on. But
Yeah.
it is
No.
rich. You're right.
Totally. I mean, obviously we could touch on more, but that is very interesting to know that the Romans didn't invent it, but rather I guess they uh,
They
perfected it.
used
If
it
that was,
very effectively.
yeah, that was if that's a way to say it, their punishment. And so here,
And I think it's important also, I'm sorry, Elliot, but I
no, you're
just
good.
thought
Yeah.
of something. I think it's important that we realize that Christians later, Nero was the first one to use the cross against Christians. So it was not only
Mm.
used of people that rebelled either against Alexander the Great or some of the great empires before, or the Romans. It was also used, Nero was the first one that used the cross against Christians. For centuries, it was used
Oh wow.
against Jews and other people. It wasn't only the Jews, Spartacus, for example. Those of us that have seen the movie Spartacus or know a little about Spartacus, he was a slave, and I'm trying to remember. I think it was Crassus was the guy who defeated. He was Roman, and they had over 6,000 people, slaves, that were
Wow.
crucified. So I mean, it was something that was very not. I won't dare say common, but it was in use. It was in use, and
Mm-hmm.
it was really to send out a message.
Mm-hmm.
You don't cross us, whether it be the Romans, whether it be the Greeks, whether it be the Persians, or any of the other people that used it. It was really something that you don't cross us, because if you cross us, this is what happens. And also, it's important to realize that the Roman citizen at the time of Jesus, they did not use the cross for them because they were Roman citizens.
Oh wow.
And
Yeah.
no,
Only
it's
for
fascinating doing a study on the cross. It's worthwhile. Yep.
yeah. And it was a humiliating thing, and
Oh yeah.
the and so just to clarify, you said that before maybe with the Persians and stuff like that, they didn't always die, but when the Romans did it, they always died. It was a death
I would say
sentence,
so. I'm
right?
pretty sure. I know of other cultures and other situations. It was sometimes they would release them. After
Mm-hmm.
again after, let's say, they got their point across.
Mm-hmm.
But the Romans, pretty much, I would dare say that, yes.
Okay.
But
Yeah, because
again,
I know
I
that they
wouldn't
would
put
like break the legs and
right, exactly.
and just suffocate there.
Yeah, oh
That's
yeah. And that's most probably the great majority of people died from suffocation. And it was very prolonged. Sometimes they would prolong it 2, 3, 4 days. And again, I don't want to minimize the death of Jesus on the cross, but
uh-huh.
Jesus did not suffer in the sense of the agony that some others of the thousands that were done, some of them 2, 3, 4 days, just
Wow.
suffering on the cross. And again, please, I don't want any of our hearers to say, "Oh, Dr. Nick and Elliot said, Jesus did not suffer." I'm not saying that. What I'm
Right.
saying is that Jesus's death. let's put it like this, was pretty quick compared to many others that were crucified.
Gotcha. And that, I think, helps us remind us of the bigger point, because, I think growing up, I would watch The Passion of the Christ and stuff like that, and
Right.
people would make the physical suffering that Jesus had the main point, which I'm not saying it's not important, but
Exactly.
there is something going on behind the curtain the that was the main point of what was
Yeah,
coming, the sin that he took upon himself. And anyway,
exactly.
we could spend hours there, but the
No, but it's true. It's
that
very, very true. And it's
yeah.
something that we need to understand that he, when I say he, I mean Jesus, took our place.
Mm-hmm.
Because again, us as human beings, all of us, from Adam on down and Eve, all of us, as the Bible very clearly states, all of us have sinned and have fallen short of the glory of God, as Paul writes in Romans and other passages. So
Mm-hmm.
here we have someone who is innocent, and we're going to be talking about that. As a matter of fact, when we talk about the two thieves or the two criminals, how he was innocent, but yet he died for us. How
Mm-hmm.
God became flesh. I mean, like I
Yeah.
said, I'm going to hold back because otherwise
Yeah.
we're not
Yeah,
going to
we'll
hit
be
the text for today.
yeah, like he who knew no sin was made sin in our behalf, that we might become the righteousness of God in Christ. Cursed is everyone who's on a
Exactly.
tree. We could
Right.
one day we'll touch on all those passages, but
Okay, sure.
hopefully. Um, but yeah, so let's do this. We've touched a little bit of why that's central to our faith, and who was crucified and what that meant. So on his way to the crucifixion, he had um, there was a lot of different groups of people who had different reactions
Yeah.
to him, right?
Right.
So
Encounters. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and then we'll talk about the last two right
Sure.
before he dies. But um, on his way to the cross, what's surprising is that here it says the crowd was mourning and
Yeah.
was caring for him, which is weird because before that they were all yelling crucify him. Like, I don't know if it's the same crowd, different crowd, if
Right.
he's highlighting different types of people, but there were
Right.
some people who were with him on his side.
Well, yeah, we're sympathetic to him. Let's not forget that Jesus was extremely, extremely popular.
Hmm.
As much as he was very popular, he was also hated, despised. And but there were those people that were sympathetic towards Jesus, his cause. Those people that believed that he truly was the Messiah, he was truly the Son of God. Maybe they
Hmm.
didn't understand all the ins and outs of everything, but within that crowd, again, there were, you very well said, the crowd said crucify him, but it's not the same crowd here either. And we see how the importance of there were in the midst of that. Of course, there were people that were jeering him, they were laughing at him, as the movies depict a lot of times, threw stuff at him, etc. But there were those people there who were also sympathetic and believed in him, and
Hmm.
if they didn't believe in him, still they maybe didn't like seeing that he was unjustly, being crucified. So yeah,
Hmm.
it's curious to, and it's a number of different groups, and that's why I enjoy so much this series that we're doing on having an encounter with Christ, because we see the reactions of so many different people, and
Yeah.
groups. Here we have the crowd. Then we'll look at the religious leaders, how they reacted to Jesus, and the soldiers. And we'll also look at a little later even the two men on the cross next to Jesus. There, the two men, how their reaction was so very different. So, and
Yeah.
it's the same today, Elliot. It's the same exact thing today. Some people react very much in favor of Jesus, believe in him, follow him. There are others that sort of look at from a distance, sort of,
Hmm.
well, maybe. And there are others that totally reject or despise, the Gospels and what Jesus did. So it's
Yeah.
it's almost like I know this happened, and we know this happened 2,000 years ago, but yet we look at it today in 2022. We look at it today, and the reactions of people are just very similar.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
So we have the crowd here mourning and they're in favor. At least you said whether they
Yeah.
believed some of them or
Yeah.
some of them knew at least he was innocent.
Right.
And then we have the rulers who were kind of scoffing at him. So who are these rulers? Are they like the religious?
Most
Like
probably, yeah. They were the religious leaders. Let's not forget, the ones that executed Jesus' death were the Romans, but the ones that helped to get Jesus to them were the religious leaders. The high
right?
priest and the
They got
different
what they wanted.
Sadducees. Exactly,
Hmm.
exactly. And the Gospels, all four of them, make that very clear. So yeah, they were the religious leaders of the day. They were the ones that accused him of blasphemy. They were the ones that also ridiculed him. They said he's a false Messiah, etc. When Pontius Pilate uh,
They call
asked,
us
"Who do
weak.
you want?" Yeah, exactly. Who do you want me to release, and just the whole thing. So that was probably, even though we don't have their names, but it was probably that crowd, most probably, because they were witnesses to that, and that's what they wanted. It was a power grab. They felt
Yeah.
threatened because of Jesus and many other things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it makes me think of John chapter 1 when he says he came to his own and his
Right.
own did not receive him. Like here's like these verses like what John's referring
Yeah.
to, I think,
Hmm.
in some aspect.
Yeah.
And then we
Yeah.
have
Yeah. Yeah.
the
And
soldiers.
that's that
Oh yeah.
tension, that you and I have discussed many times. That's that tension because not everyone, and the first believers were all Jewish,
Mhm.
not everyone, rejected Jesus. That's why I think Luke is just so brilliant the way he points out things. And that's why when we see that crowd in favor, it's important to note. Yeah, sometimes we look at the movies or read books that are written, and we think everybody opposed Jesus. No, 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 that's not true. That's not really
Mhm.
true. So
That's good. That's good. That's true.
yeah,
We always say the Jews rejected him. Not all the Jews, like all the first believers, like you
that's right.
said, they were all Jews. So
Yeah,
that's good.
that's
That's good
right.
to note that. Then we have the soldiers, which the soldiers we can't make them all innocent here. Obviously, it was the rulers of the Pharisees that were pushing it, but the soldiers, it's like they enjoyed it. They were mocking
Yep.
Jesus. I guess
Yeah.
they would have done this to maybe any Jew. I would assume.
Yeah.
Maybe I don't know. It was just part of. I can imagine that's a tough line of work, and maybe you just get really, I don't know, hard. Like insensitive,
Yeah, but
and like I don't know. It doesn't excuse it, obviously, but like, and here they are
yeah.
mocking Jesus, and they
Well,
later
yeah,
cast lots
and
over for his robe.
right, right. And it's curious to note, again, the intention behind, if I can say that, the intention behind the religious leaders mocking Jesus. Their intention was because of religious reasons. He blasphemed.
Hmm.
But here, I think it's very important to note that the intention behind the soldiers mocking him was because, of course, we know from the Gospels that Jesus, there was a sign put by the Roman soldiers on the cross in three languages, the language of their day. One, of course, was Latin, which was the governmental language, but one was Greek, which was really the trade language, and the other one was Hebrew, which is the religious language. And I would dare say that the soldiers were looking at him from the perspective of politics more than anything. The language that we see here in the text regarding the religious leaders is they say, well, he said he was a Messiah, which is a religious term, really. But
Hmm.
we see that with the soldiers, it's more a mocking because for them, as good soldiers, as Roman citizens, some of them were not Roman citizens, but still as Roman soldiers, it was very important for them. They only had one king, and that
Hmm.
king was Caesar. Maybe they believed different things, but they had to look at it from that perspective, you know.
Hmm.
And the only king was Caesar, of course, and we know from history, the first century, and after Jesus' death and resurrection, one of the accusations against against the Christian community or followers of Jesus was the fact that they followed this crucified king,
Yeah.
this Jesus. But it's significant to understand a couple of things that happened. Not only did they mock him, but the manner that they mocked him. They mocked him with a crown of thorns. You know, oh, you're a king here, and I think you mentioned before the Passion of the Christ, and the Passion of the Christ, and many other good movies. Really show the emphasis of the hate and the way they belittled Christ. And it was intentional. I would dare say it was intentional, the crown of thorns, and also the purple, which was the color of royalty, you know. So here we see the soldiers, I dare say, much more looking at it from the perspective of politics. You say you're a
Interesting.
king, hey, we got a king too, and his name is
Yeah.
Caesar,
Right.
And it's curious that they also mention, again, I just keep on thinking of this and, and enjoying and discovering all these truths is the fact that not only king and Caesar's the king, but they tell him, come on down from the cross. And the religious leaders also sort of, okay, you said you're the Messiah, come on down the cross, from the cross,
Yeah.
like, ha, 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 look what we're doing to you. But at the same
Yep.
time, if Jesus would have done that, he would not have fulfilled his mission, and
Mm-hmm.
and it's very easy to say, yeah, Jesus, I know humanly looking, yeah, come down the cross,
Yeah.
come up from the cross, show him. But that wasn't his mission. His mission was
Yeah.
really to go to the cross. Yeah.
Yeah. And so defeating. Ah, so good. And then well, now then we come to the encounter of today. I know we don't have much time left, but the here we have the two people next to him on the cross.
Right.
And I'll read it real quick.
Sure.
It's in Luke 23, verse 40 to 44, and says, 39. Starts in 39. Says, one of the criminals who were hanging there was hurling abuse at him, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us," like you were talking about. But the other answered and rebuking him said, "Do you not even fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed are suffering justly, for we are receiving what we deserve for our deeds. But this man has done nothing wrong." And he was saying, "Jesus, remember me when you come in your kingdom." And he, being Jesus, said to him, "Truly I say to you, today you shall be with me in paradise." Wow. So here we have the last two people, and one doing exactly what you were saying, mocking him, saying what they were saying, like, all right, show your power. You're the king. You're the Messiah. Like, this is your
That's
chance.
right.
Show that you have some sort of authority. And the other one rebuked him for that and humbly, anyway, admitted,
Yeah.
like, we deserve this, but he's innocent. And then he cries out
Exactly.
for help from Jesus. Ah,
Right.
beautiful.
And worth noting again is not you have one that rebukes, but the other one who, like you said, in humility, realizes who Jesus really is. Maybe he didn't understand all the ins and outs, of the resurrection and that Jesus was going to be raised on the third day, or things like that. But he did recognize, first of all, the innocence of Jesus,
Yeah.
which to me is very significant, not only from a perspective of as a believer, but also from prophecy. How prophecy said, again, we spoke before about Isaiah chapter 53, and here we have him, rebuking, like you said, rebuking the other guy and then just throwing himself at the feet of Jesus and asking for
Yeah.
mercy and saying, hey, whatever it is, I'm guilty, and we talk about coming to Jesus, today in our culture, in church culture, we say coming to Jesus. He actually came to Jesus right there,
Yeah.
and he asked for forgiveness and he repented, and saying, yes, I'm guilty, but you're innocent, and I wanna be where you are. And it's
Yeah.
curious. Christ tells him, yeah, paradise, which is a loan word, and by a loan word I mean it's originally from Persian, it means sort of a protected area, a paradise. It was literally a king's garden, you know. So I know sometimes preachers teach or they say, you know, heaven, but literally it's the king's the king's garden, you know, and it's
Wow.
a loan word. So it's just full of just so
Yeah.
much, so much.
And obviously, like right there, what's the implication of the king's garden? It's weird, first of all, that he would use a Persian word, and you said the Persians invented the
Right.
cross. I don't know if that's a happy accident. But then
Yeah. No,
he
no, no,
he
it's true.
and here he's saying, "You'll be with me in the king's garden." And I think
Yeah.
referencing obviously the Garden of Eden, you know, the creation
Right.
restored in the end when heaven and earth
Exactly.
become one. And this
Yeah.
guy must have understood that Jesus was more than just a man, obviously,
Yeah.
because he said, "Remember me when you come in your kingdom." It doesn't say, "Remember me when I go to heaven," or whatever, like you said.
Right.
He's saying, "When you return, when you come in your kingdom, remember me." So he's acknowledging that the kingdom belongs to Christ, to Jesus, right there.
Right.
So he's acknowledging him as the king who's coming
Right.
with a different kingdom from heaven, you know, from this other place into our world, and he's gonna reign. And and that's just beautiful. Like, so you said he admits his need in humility. He comes to him, recognizes Jesus as king, and then the beauty of it, that it's never too late. You know, it's not like
Yep.
Jesus said, "Well, oh, now you come to me now that you're about to die." No,
That's right.
forget it. You know, you're too late.
That's probably
Jesus said,
what Saint Eliot and Saint Nick would say.
"Yeah,
Okay, you're ready now? Come on.
yeah, you had your chance." No, but Jesus is like,
That's right.
today you'll be with me in the king's garden.
Exactly.
Today you'll be with me in the garden that's restored in the kingdom.
That's right.
And that's the hope that we all have, you know, that no matter how much we've done, we're never too far gone. And Jesus shows
That's
mercy
right.
and love even up till his last moment.
Yep. Exactly.
Love
Very
it.
good, Eliot. That's good. I think we've done some justice to this passage, and
We've
I'm sure we
tried.
could come up with many more things.
Yeah, I know we had to rush through that end part, but I think that laying out what crucifixion was and his path all the way up to this moment was important. So thank you again, Doc. Um,
Likewise.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. We'll see you in our next one. Thank you for supporting this podcast. Remember, you can email us with any questions or suggestions or opinions or whatever at thejesustablepodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, we'll see you guys in our next episode.
Blessings. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to the Jesus Table podcast. We pray that these conversations are a blessing for anyone seeking to know who Jesus is and for those seeking to know him even more.